The Bostonian is Matt Perrault.
This is our city.
The book is Dave Sharapan.
Pay him. Pay that man his money.
Together, they are the Bostonian versus the book.
You covered! You covered 12! I covered!
Follow the show on Twitter at Boston versus the book.
How do you like them apples?
Bringing you the best insight on sports betting news, Matt and Dave's daily picks, and an entertaining and unfiltered dive into the sports betting industry. Here's Dave Sharapan and Matt Perrault.
And here we go.
What's up, guys? How are you? Happy Wednesday. Welcome into another episode of the Bostonian versus the book. My name is Matt Perrault. We are live on YouTube at Boston versus the book. Same on X, Twitter at Boston versus the book. Replayed on Sports Grid Television at 10 p.m. Pacific time each and every week night. We got a loaded show for you guys coming up here for today. I don't normally put two guests on in one day, but we are going to talk to Adam Bjorn today because Adam's got a bunch of things going on Thursday and Friday. So Adam Bjorn today, BVB being brought to you by BetCris Arizona. Today on a Wednesday, he will be joined. Actually, he will be following Kevin Iole, legendary boxing writer, a guy who is truly an incredible boxing mind, combat sports mind, to get into what is going to be just a huge weekend in Las Vegas. I am furious, furious that I am not in Las Vegas for this fight. I have seen nearly every single Canelo Alvarez fight in Las Vegas, dating back to the first Triple G fight. When he has fought in Vegas, I have been at the Canelo fight. Terrence Bud Crawford is my favorite fighter. I have known Terrence Crawford since my days in Omaha, when I worked in Omaha from 2005 to 2009, and even when I went into Des Moines from 2009 to 2011. I've been talking about Bud Crawford. I have been watching Bud Crawford. I have been obsessing about the talents of Terrence Bud Crawford for a very long time. The fact that this fight is going to happen at Allegiant Stadium on Saturday night, and this fight is finally happening, and everyone's wondering and questioning and talking about whether or not this is going to be a, quote, super fight. Is this Hearns Hagler? Is this it for Canelo? I mean, there are real talks right now going on in boxing circles about this being the last time we see Canelo fight. We've got Zuffa Boxing involved with this fight. Dana White is involved with this. Dana White wants to change boxing. He wants to bring the UFC model of essentially controlling fighters to the sport of boxing. Will that work? I mean, the boxing model's broken. I don't think anybody would stand up and say that there's some type of like debate on that boxing is broken, that fighters aren't compensated the way they're supposed to be, and that the audiences aren't being served properly. And that's why the Jake Pauls of the world are getting audiences, because people like violence. People like boxing. People like it when two people get into the ring and they put gloves on and they beat the tar out of each other. I mean, this is, you want to talk about gambling. You want to talk about, the Olympics. You want to talk about, human history. This has been part of human history for a very long time. And so it's smart for the UFC to recognize the broken system of boxing and wanting to get involved. It's just whether or not the boxing world wants to be involved in that type of entity. So we'll talk to Kevin Iole coming up here in about 10 minutes. Looking forward to that. And then following Kevin, Adam Bjorn, BetCris Arizona, Plannatech's coming on Thursday Night Football. Huge game, obviously, tomorrow with the Packers hosting the Washington Commanders. Big college football weekend. Lots of things to get into with Adam. Looking forward to that. We'll talk to him about Survivor picks and Circa Million picks and everything else that he's involved with and what's going on with BetCris Arizona. So very, very cool stuff coming up with Adam at the bottom of the hour. So stay tuned for that. Very, very busy day for us today. It'll be a different type of day because we don't normally have two guests back to back, but that's what we're doing today. And so We'll kind of push off some of the other segments that we normally do today. Will kind of be pushed to the wayside. But I'm sitting here in a neighborhood in New Hampshire that something popped across my screen this morning, and I thought to myself, man alive, this is pretty cool. I need to talk about this. And it's a little bit of a different type of conversation, but it's one involving Adam Sandler, and it's one involving where I am currently sitting here in what is called the North End of Manchester, New Hampshire, which is where Adam Sandler is from. That topic is our opening line. So I think as guys, if we could create a life and we could say, this is what I get to do for my career. And because my career opens so many different doors, here's what I get to do. Adam Sandler is one of the most interesting, quote, celebrities out there for a variety of reasons. One, I am currently sitting, and I'm not kidding you, I can throw a baseball from where I am sitting. If I went upstairs and I went out to the edge of Amanda's property, I can throw a baseball, and I can, well, not right now, obviously, because of my arm, but when I used to be able to throw, and I could hit the boyhood home of Adam Sandler. And his parents currently live there. They haven't gone anywhere. His parents live in Manchester here. There is a elementary school that Amanda's son, he just now went to a different school, but up until a week ago, he went to an elementary school that is down the street from Adam Sandler's parents. And Adam Sandler is known to consistently now, not once in a while, to consistently roll up to the elementary school and play basketball with the kids. Just throw on a pair of shorts, throw on a pair of sneakers, and go out there and, oh, that's Adam Sandler, a guy worth, I don't know, $400, $500, $600 million, is just hooping it with a bunch of elementary school kids like it's nothing, like it's a normal day. He might be the coolest guy in Hollywood. I was thinking to myself today, I was like, is there anybody cooler right now than Adam Sandler? Because this guy just did this. Happy Gilmore 2 became the biggest opening weekend movie ever on Netflix. Now, you can talk about the movie. I don't care. You can say the movie sucks. You can say it was boring. You can say it was, a waste of your time. I don't really care. I don't really care whether you like it or not, whether you think it's fun or not, whether you think it's a cool thing to be a part of or not. Adam Sandler just has that on his resume. That Happy Gilmore 2, so many people watched it. So many people ran to Netflix and put Netflix on to watch it. The guy's a box office draw still. And he plays basketball and does things that I think any one of us would dream of if we loved a certain sport. Barstool Sports pointed this out, and I'm really glad that they did, because this is amazing. This is incredible as to what Adam Sandler did. Last week, Adam Sandler rolled up to play pickup basketball with not one, but two men's basketball programs. The picture on the left, that guy in the white, that's Vanilla Ice. It's not just Adam Sandler. That's Vanilla Ice hooping with South Florida, with the basketball team, with the managers. Adam Sandler went to Florida Gulf Coast and stopped by and picked up some run with the guys from Florida Gulf Coast, from Dunk City. Adam Sandler, this dude who could barely jump over an index card, is getting to hoop with the premier D1 athletes that you could go out there and want to play with. I was thinking in my head, I was like, if you love the game of basketball, Adam Sandler's living an incredible life, like an absolutely incredible life. There's careers, and we wonder why men in our kids, we wonder why they want to be influencers, right? We wonder why they want to be actors and why they want to be musicians and why do they want to have these, because Adam Sandler is the most average of average looking guys. Adam Sandler is hysterically funny and extremely talented. And in all honesty, if you are funny, I think you might be the most talented of all of, acting, dancing, singing. Being funny, I think, is the hardest. To be really funny, like a comedic genius, like Adam Sandler, it's really hard to do. It's really, really hard to do. But he is an incredible person to watch living his best life because he doesn't care. He just does what he wants to do. He does whatever he can do, whatever he wants to do. And now he's out there playing pickup basketball with 2 D1 basketball programs. If he wasn't Adam Sandler, they would probably have him arrested for going and trying to play pickup basketball. I don't know. I was looking at the top careers for men in 2025 and software developers, number 1, cybersecurity analyst, construction manager, electrician, operations manager, commercial pilot, business development, manager, financial analyst. These are all awesome careers. I'm not knocking any one of them, but it's not what Adam Sandler gets to do. I mean, if you're a kid in high school right now and you're looking at that and you're seeing what Adam Sandler gets to do, wouldn't you want to follow in his footsteps? So it wowed me that I'm sitting here in New Hampshire. I'm sitting here in this neighborhood that Adam Sandler grew up in. His mom's house, they still live in the same house he grew up in that literally is 100 yards from where I am sitting. And he is bouncing around Florida, going to D1 gyms and going to go play pickup basketball. And he's welcomed with open arms on a guy who, let's be frank here, Adam Sandler is not really good at basketball, but it's Adam Sandler and he wants to play basketball. And they say, oh yeah, come play. With our D1 athletes, come around and go and run and get some pickup ball. It's really, really cool. It's a wild story that in a lot of ways only happens in America, right? It only happens in America. Well, Shooter McGavin, I had Shooter McGavin in my studio. It was Jen Sturger, Shooter McGavin, and another comic. Oh, I don't know. It was at the Venetian. So it was somewhere around 2014, 2015. I had Shooter in. So him and I go back and forth on DM sometimes on X. So I know Shooter McGavin. It's, he was in obviously Happy Gilmore too, but there's another tie there with those guys. So I don't know. It jumped off the page to me seeing Adam Sandler last week go and play pickup basketball. And then obviously where his parents currently live and how humble of a beginning he had and how humble he still is at this moment when he comes back and plays pickup basketball with the kids at the elementary school down the street. And again, he looks like a normal dude. Like Adam Sandler at the grocery store, you wouldn't go, oh yeah, that's a Hollywood, quadrillionaire, whatever he's worth at the moment. One of the biggest movie stars in the entire world for Adam Sandler. So really, really cool stuff happening with that. Speaking of really, really cool stuff, I'm bummed that I'm not going to be there. This is why, when you're recovering from surgery, you have to avoid certain things. And one will be, unfortunately, not being able to be in Vegas to watch Canelo and Bud Crawford. As I told you guys, I've seen nearly every single Canelo fight in Vegas that he's had. And I've been a huge fan of Bud Crawford since I moved to Omaha in 2005 and first heard the name of Terrence Bud Crawford. Kevin Iole, one of the premier boxing analysts, writers, joining us here on the Bostonian versus the Book. Kevin, how are you? Happy retirement. How are things treating you?
I'm doing great. It's like I still have the thing in me, Matt. Every time I wake up in the morning, okay, what do I got to do today? And I realize nothing. I do what I want to do. So that's kind of cool.
Absolutely. Do you miss it? Did you miss the grind, the week by week?
I love to write and I love to talk about sports and to watch sports and everything. So, I do miss it. Like what I don't miss is the reporting. Like and I might actually do this, I might just go on Medium or somewhere and just write columns off the top of my head. I watch an event, maybe I watch the Crawford Canelo fight and I give my thoughts on it. I do miss that part. I don't miss all the reporting and all the work, the verification and all these different things that you do that, the average person doesn't know we do, right? And that stuff, is kind of, that wasn't good, and having to worry about traffic and having to worry about engagement and all that stuff. I'm glad that's in my past. I miss writing. I miss talking about sports. So I actually did a video last week. The first thing that I've done other than, these kind of interviews, but I did a video last week about Tyson and Mayweather and how I was so upset about it. And I thought it was so ridiculous. So I did do something, but I'm enjoying, kind of being my own guy now.
Does it give you any extra freedom to potentially say, because I don't think there's anybody more with a bigger authority in where boxing is and where the sport of boxing is you. Does it give you any extra freedom that you're not tied to an entity and you don't have to worry about access and you don't have to worry about someone pulling your credential if you say something that somebody doesn't like?
Well, if you go back and you look at what I wrote at keviniole.com, if you look at what I wrote at Yahoo Sports and before that, the Las Vegas Review-Journal, and before that, my other stops, I was always blunt as a Mike Tyson right to the nose, right? I said what I believed. And the thing is, some people thought I hated boxing. I love boxing. And I was critical of a lot of the stuff going on. And I remain critical of some of the crap that goes on, because I do love it and I want to see it should be a bigger sport than it is. And when you see how big MMA is, that tells you the potential boxing has. And a lot of these morons that are in charge don't see that.
Kevin, the introduction of, and we've heard it for years, that Dana White and Zuffa Boxing, they were going to get involved. And obviously they're heavily involved now with this fight coming up on Saturday. It's always good to get new companies and new entities involved, but how receptive is the sport going to be if Dana White does want to bring a UFC type model to the sport of boxing?
Well, I think it's going to be difficult to do a UFC type model, at least at the beginning, because, all the top fighters are signed with other promoters, and those promoters aren't going to roll over and say, oh yeah, let's let Dana White and Turki Al-Sheikh take all our top fighters, right? Eddie Hearn's not going to do that. Oscar De La Hoya is not going to do that. So the top promoters out there, Frank Warren, they're not going to make that, and say, they're not going to make it easy for the UFC and, or not for UFC, but for Zuffa Boxing and Turki Al-Sheikh. So I think what they need to do is they need to grow their own fighters. So they can do it. It's going to take a period of time, to build up. Right. And the question that I have, I believe totally in Dana as a promoter. I think he is the best promoter in the history of combat sports, no doubt about it. And I think if he had promoted boxing instead of MMA, we would be talking about boxing riding high, and MMA, who knows what that is, right? Because that's how much I have respect for Dana. But at this stage, right, you have to get a roster and you have to be able to consistently put on good fights. And it's going to take a while to do, Matt.
This fight happening on Saturday night, is this a super fight? It's Crawford, it's Canelo. Obviously, they've got their own large fan bases. Canelo's got a whole country behind him. But in terms of the general public, is this a super fight in your mind?
It's not Mayweather versus Pacquiao, right? I lived that Mayweather-Pacquiao thing, and it was excruciating because from the first time that they talked about that fight, which was after Pacquiao beat Miguel Cotto in late 2009, they started talking about Mayweather versus Pacquiao. Every radio interview I did, every television interview I did, I was asked, are they going to fight? And it was for over 5 years that you had that. And I would be at, getting gas in my car and somebody would come up to me. Do you think Mayweather and Pacquiao were going to fight? And that fight just built and built and built. And it became the biggest financial fight in the history of the sport. This fight is not that big, but within boxing, the scope of it is a massive fight. You're talking Canelo, arguably the biggest star in boxing. You're talking Bud Crawford, arguably the pound for pound number one in the world in boxing. Both of them are top 10. There's history at stake. Bud is trying to become the first 3-division, 4-belt champion, first undisputed champion in the 4-belt era in 3 weight classes. Think about that, right? And how difficult that is to do, especially with the sanctioning body politics. So I think there's a lot that makes it a massive fight, and I think it's going to be a very fascinating fight in the ring. As far as it being like a Tyson Holyfield or a Mayweather Pacquiao, not going to be that, but I think they're going to do good numbers being on Netflix worldwide.
Yeah, not having the pay-per-view angle of it, I think will definitely help and definitely make the numbers, big for this fight. Canelo has been for years talked about, hey, you have the Mexican fan, you have the Mexican fight fan, but the U.S. fight fan has been a bit resistant. Some of which is because he was hesitant to speak English. He's been speaking English all week. I've watched like 4 interviews with him so far, talking in English, answering questions about this fight. Is this potentially the last fight for Canelo? Do you think he fights again after this?
I do think he'll fight again. And to give him credit, he's been speaking English for a while now. He probably 2015 range, he could speak English, he could communicate with you, but he wanted to be precise, and so he didn't do it. But I think around 2019, 2020, he pretty much transitioned and he did his interviews in English. I did a number of, during the pandemic, Zoom interviews with him in English, right? So, he... give him credit for that. I think he will continue to fight, right? I think, number one, he's going to make a massive amount of money if he continues to fight after this, regardless of whether he wins or loses. So I think, if he loses, there's probably a rematch. That would be, my guess, depending on how the fight goes. But I just think there's too much for him to walk away from. And, I never thought I would say this, but I think that there's that lure of that Jake Paul fight out there, right? And I hate it. I think it's a disgusting joke. But I think, he's going to make a 9-figure payday if he fights Jake Paul. And so if Tank Davis doesn't, just drop Jake Paul and knock him out, then, maybe Canelo will be the one to do it.
Oh, my gosh. Well, the fight, let's get to it because it's so fascinating. Canelo is a big favorite, obviously, as you'd expect. 10.5 is the round total. We're talking about a 12-round fight in the super middleweight division here. So the books are saying a knockout's not going to happen here. If it does, it's going to happen in the later rounds, which is very typical for a Canelo Alvarez fight. Do you see a path to victory for Bud Crawford against Canelo?
Oh, yeah, I like Crawford to win. I think Crawford wins the fight. Now, the thing is, Canelo has one of the great chins in the history of boxing. So I don't think Crawford has a path to knock him out. So I agree with the over on that. Canelo hasn't scored a knockout since 2021 when he stopped Caleb Plant late in the fight. So I think this is going to be an over fight if I'm betting on this fight. But I like Crawford to win. I think Canelo has a path to win this, but you look at his last couple performances, and William Skull ran on him. But having said, and that's tough to fight against. Having said that, Canelo was a veteran. He knew how Skull fought. He didn't train, apparently, to figure out how to cut off the ring and get Skull in a corner and make him fight. And you go back and you look, Edgar Berlanga stinks, and Canelo went the distance with him. Canelo, up until the Bivol fight, the one thing you said about him was this guy fought everybody. He didn't duck anybody. He took on every challenge. And since the Bivol fight, his level of competition has really dropped off. So, what does that tell you? Canelo and Eddie Reynoso, his trainer, are 2 very, very smart boxing people. Do they think, maybe Canelo's not at the same level as he was 4 or 5 years ago? Possibly. But I think Crawford does so many good things, Matt. I really like him to win a decision in this fight.
Do you, in terms of punching power, how big of an advantage does Canelo have in your mind? Because I've heard some say we're sleeping on the power of Bud Crawford and just how heavy his hands can be.
Yeah, I think Crawford punches hard, but I think Canelo has the advantage in punching power. There's no question about that. But I also don't think that Canelo is a KO puncher at this point, especially with one punch, right? Maybe if they had fought 2019 or something, 2018, then that would have been a different story. but I don't think he has that kind of pop left in his hands. You know, he's going to sting you. And if he puts a combination together, could he finish Bud? Yes, he could. But I think Crawford also has a good chin, not the kind of chin that, you know, Canelo has. Canelo has an all-time great chin. But I think that Crawford has a good chin. I think he'll be able to stand up to what it is. And I think the thing that Crawford has to worry about most is one of his strengths is switching from, orthodox to southpaw and back, and he confuses guys. But sometimes if you fight a smart fighter, they can time that, and when you're switching, they can catch you. And that's something that I think he'll have to really be careful of, and he can't let himself get caught during the switch. And if he does get caught, then, you know, Canelo can hurt him and potentially finish him. But I think Bud's power will be enough to make Canelo respect him and not just wade in, and I think it'll be a really fun competitive fight.
Kevin, what does the venue do for this? Because I've been on record and I've talked about this a lot. I was at, you know, all three of the Triple G fights, and I thought Triple G won the first two fights, to be quite honest. And I've said I don't believe that if it goes to the cards that you could see a decision go against Canelo Alvarez because of, well, he is the A side. He's the draw at T-Mobile Arena. It's 99.9% there to see Canelo. Do we see, because of the size of the venue, could we see a sizable Bud Crawford contingency making their way from either Omaha or the Midwest or whatever, and that might kind of even it up a little bit for the fight as to who's cheering for whom at Allegiant?
I think Crawford's going to have a good audience here. I really do. I think, you know, overall the crowd will be for Canelo, but I think, you know, is it going to be 60-40, 65-35? But I think Crawford's going to have a loud contingent that is going to be, you know, be for him. And I disagree with the narrative that, you know, I think it was true back in the day, but I don't think right now Canelo is that guy. You know, he's not fighting in Vegas all the time anymore like he used to. I don't know that, you know, Crawford has to worry about being unfairly judged. I think, you know, if he wins the fight, I think he'll get the verdict. You know, I think the thing that helped Canelo before, and I think like in those Triple G fights, a lot of the judges automatically swang. If the round is close, I'm going Canelo. And I don't know that they're necessarily going to do that anymore. But I also don't think a lot of the rounds are going to be close. You know, I think Crawford will win some of these rounds clearly. And people don't know. And that's one of the shames. And, you know, his publicity was terrible over his career. But Crawford is actually a good guy. And he's a really smart guy. And he is a historically great all-time fighter. And the fact that people don't know that is really a shame, and it's due to his team and the lack of push that he got from his own team, and that's really sad to think about.
This is not going to be Hagler Hearns, right? This is not going to be that, like on that type of level. We aren't expecting a fight we're going to talk about for the next 20 years.
I don't think so. You know, I mean, you never say never, right? But I think when you look at the path to victory, first of all, Canelo hasn't fought that way in a while, right? Go through his fights, even against lesser opposition. You know, he fought a shot Charlo, and, you know, he had Charlo hurt. He didn't even come close to finishing him. You know, he fought Edgar Berlanga, dropped him. You know, Berlanga's terrible. He didn't come close to finishing him. You know, Jaime Munguia, not, a good fighter, but not a great fighter. John Ryder, you know, in his retirement fight. You know, Canelo isn't that guy anymore that's going to come out there and just start, you know, throwing and, you know, get in those kind of toe-to-toe slugfests, you know, like he did in a lot of situations with Triple G. Those were his peak, you know, fights, right? I don't think he's that guy. And if you look at Crawford, like, look at what his best performances were. Take his fight against Errol Spence. I thought he was going to win that fight against Errol Spence, and he went out and did. But I didn't think he would do to Errol Spence what he did. But he didn't swarm him like you saw Hearns do Hagler, right? You know, he went out there and strategically broke Errol Spence down, took advantage of openings, and finished him. Tommy Hearns went out there against Hagler, and he just let it all hang out, and Hagler had to respond, and that's why we got an all-time great fight. I just don't see that happening in this one.
In terms of a rematch, you mentioned it. If this fight goes the way you think and the way I think too, because I think Bud Crawford, I don't think Canelo can cut the ring off. I think Bud's footwork is going to be the difference in this fight. Right. And I think he's going to have angles that Canelo's not going to see coming. And I think just from a scoring perspective, I love Bud Crawford's ability to stay away from the power punches. do we see an automatic rematch? Is it guaranteed to happen, or could we see some time where Canelo was like, I want to go and prepare and fight other fighters before I go and do an automatic rematch?
Canelo has been pretty vocal about wanting to fight a long time. So I don't, the one thing I'm at odds to answer this question is because I am retired. I haven't been checking. I don't know if there's a rematch clause in this contract. Knowing Dana White, I would guess that there is not.
Yeah.
But I don't know that for a fact. So that kind of I have to temper my answer when I say that. But I think, that, Canelo has been vocal about wanting to fight a long time and not, walk away from the sport anytime soon. So if that is true, and and he's been pretty good to his word, what he has said throughout his career, if I accept that, that would tell me that there doesn't have to be an immediate rematch. He could go out there and, like I said, maybe take the payday fight against Jake Paul, win that money, maybe fight somebody else. Maybe he fights Bivol, right? That's a fight that, especially if he wins, Bivol coming off the win over Beterbiev, Canelo wants that back. That could be a fight that they do. Maybe if he wins, they talk him into fighting David Benavidez. There'd be some options out there for him. So I don't know that it necessarily would be an immediate rematch, but I think if Crawford wins, there would be a rematch of some kind.
Kevin, to get you out here on this, in terms of the crossover, I think people have wondered, would we ever see a major event involving UFC and boxing? Is that the game plan here? Do you anticipate, because obviously we're going to the White House in 26, and there's some unique things that the UFC is trying to do to garner some new eyeballs and new attention. Is the play eventually one day to have a cross sport, UFC octagon with a boxing ring right next door and doing it on the same night, maybe even in the same venue?
I don't think so. I mean, you've got different audiences, and first of all, people don't realize how big the freaking octagon is, right? What was it? 25,000 pounds, I think Dana said it was, right? And then, 30 feet, then you got the ramp. I mean, it takes up a huge amount of space. So if you're going to put it, you could only do it in a fight like this in a stadium, where you had this big, so you're at Allegiant Stadium, you could put both of them, but then you're giving up a lot of prime seats. And if you're sitting on one side of the octagon, how do you even see the ring on the other side, right? It becomes, I think the logistics of it are very difficult for a big money fight. So that's not what Dana wants to do. To me, that's a gimmick, Matt, and I don't think Dana's into gimmicks, and so I wouldn't expect to see that happen.
You might be retired, my friend, but you're right there as the number one guy I want to hear from when big fights happen. So I'm hopefully you're enjoying your retirement, but this fight on Saturday night is going to be a ton of fun. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for the insight.
All right, brother. I appreciate you. Thank you.
The one and only Kevin Iole joining us here on the Bostonian versus the Book. We go from Kevin Iole to our guy one, Mr. Adam Bjorn, Bet Chris, Arizona. I have no idea where you are. Adam, how are you? Welcome back to the show. Where are you right now? Are you still in Jamaica?
No, I'm not in Jamaica. I am at Kentucky Downs outside the Circa Sportsbook, the Mint Hall Gaming Hall, here for a day at the races.
Is today the day that they're running?
No, I'm just here. I'm in Tennessee. My wife set up a birthday week. We're in Chattanooga last night. I said, let's drive to Kentucky. I want to go see the Circa Sportsbook. Need to open up my account for whenever I'm here in Kentucky. And here we are.
Very cool. I love this. Is now the third parking lot you've done BVB from, so this is great. Really, you have to keep track the number of parking lots that you've done interviews from. It's tremendous. The last time it was Jake Paul when you're outside of in
Texas,
Dallas. When you were down there. It's where in the world is Adam Bjorn? All right. So how was week one for you guys for the NFL? How did things go for you guys?
So we went all green in all four states. We won in Kentucky, Arizona, Ohio, New Jersey. And results sucked. So, I think it was a really good week. It's amazing what it could have been. I mean, Buffalo landed on the number. Denver, Tennessee landed on the number. As much went wrong that could go wrong, I think, and we actually had a good week. So, college was good. Tennis final was actually good for the US Open final in both men's and women. So all in all, it was a good week, but boy, it could have been so much better.
We talked about it last week about the in-game betting handle and the number. When you have games like Sunday night with the Bills and the Ravens, and then Monday night with the way that the game in Chicago went, where it's back and forth, the Vikings come back to win.
Yep.
Obviously, huge win for the Bills at home. What's that looking like for you guys? I mean, how do when those wild swings are happening? Is that good? Is that good for handle? What are you seeing from an action standpoint?
Handle was phenomenal. Oddly enough, that Bills Ravens games was generally a disaster on the spread. However, in Ohio, we had our famous bridge jumper get on the Ravens and obviously get, bit in the end. And that's ultimately what was our Ohio Green Week. We were red, hit that game for significant money. Took the short money line when the Ravens were up and looked like it was only going one way. And that's what got us out in Ohio and really sort of made the week for us. But the spreads, that was no fun at all because they usually bet both plus sides. They expect comebacks and things like that. You kind of end up with these sort of big middles where you want it to go either just keep going one way or really go the other way. But when it just keeps going like that, it's usually not a good result. But volume was phenomenal. Like the live betting on Sunday, I actually, going into the games, thought it felt a little light where we were at for volume. By the end of the games, that Jets-Pittsburgh game, the back and forth and that within New Jersey, it was just a great weekend of football, I think, generally, overall.
Jason Casey is asking about the battle for Ohio with Cleveland in Cincinnati. How did you guys... Sorry.
No,
how did that go for you?
Come on, Cleveland. It's a bit like the Jets. We know who they are kind of thing. Like what we're expecting. The Saturday night thing that we do with the Circa sports and that. I was going through it. I couldn't find a bet. And then suddenly I found a bet, Cleveland money line. So I posted Cleveland money line as the play. And then Sunday morning kind of backed that up saying a lot of the sharp money was coming in on Cleveland. But the money line was the go. That was an enormous result had they won straight up. But
that was the right
Cincinnati.
side. I mean, I hate that term, but I mean, I watched the game. I watched all of it. I mean, you can't. The football is a weird shaped object, and when it bounces off guys' hands and gets intercepted 2 times in the fourth quarter, that's just unfortunately betting. I mean, winning 17-16.
Yeah, and I will say in the live betting, you could see it. Like when Cincinnati went up 7-0. You had the rec players just taking Cincinnati, but you could see the sharp players taking the Browns money line and the plus 8.5 and all these things that it got to. I think all the right people saw it was all the right side, and it was so close to being an enormous result. But again, cover the spread. But yeah, that was a crazy game. There was a number of them Sunday.
Yeah, idiot kickers, right? I mean, if you miss it, he makes an extra point or makes two field goals. You're on the right side. I had a couple of money line parlays with the Bengals in it, and I was like, oh, that's dead. I was like, the Browns are going to win this game. Like, there's no way because the Bengals.
Right.
I mean, it's Joe Burrow in week 1 and week 2. I mean, he's just horrible with it. But who did you wind up rolling with for Survivor? Did you take Denver?
So of my 10 entries, 5 of them were Denver. I had a Washington in a couple. I had the Jags in one. I was told mine was the most diverse pick from the proxy that I went through. I spread it wide. I did find one loser, I think, in the end. So I've got, I think, 9 out of the 10 left. But yeah, Denver was the mainstay. I really avoided. I did no Arizona, and then there was a chance there at the end for the Saints to have at least tied that up. Washington was probably the safe pick at the end of the day as well, but I only used them, I think, once, maybe twice.
So you got a birthday tomorrow and you got a whole big weekend planned. Week 2 looks treacherous. Do you have any leans as to what you might be looking at for week 2? Because there's a lot of divisional games and there's a lot of road favorites and there's a lot of games where I'm like, we didn't have chaos. Basically, less than 600 entries went out of the 18,000 plus that we saw in week 1. I feel like week 2 is going to be a bit more on the Armageddon side.
Yeah, so I mean, the one line that really moved early on was the Patriots. I was surprised they opened 3.5. I mean, if anyone watched Miami on Sunday, it doesn't matter who they were playing, you'd want to be on the other side. And it sort of went from 3.5 to 1 dog now. But I imagine the Ravens, I mean, even coming off that game against the Browns, will be, probably 60+% pick there. It's probably an easy one and a safe one, but you can always use them. Cowboys, I mean, Jesus, that he should have caught that. That was a mess of a game as well from the Thursday night. Cardinals, Panthers. I mean, Cardinals. I don't know how anyone would feel safe on them even at home, and as good or as bad as the Panthers look. So I don't know. There's a few there, but I think Baltimore's the easy pick. Probably the Cowboys. This is the time to use them if you're going to use them at some point as well, because they did look good. I did think they looked good, and Giants. Are the Giants.
Yeah, they're horrible. We have 2 games on Monday night this coming weekend. From a book perspective, if the NFL decided to get rid of Thursday and have 2 games on Monday, would that be something you would like, or do you like the fact that we have Thursday, Monday?
I think Thursday, Monday's good, as long as they're separate games. I mean, Monday's really, I think you get people a little tentative, depending how their Sunday was, I guess. But I like that sort of spread out over the course of the 4 or 5 days. I think it gives more opportunity for people to reload and sort of and get an interest in that. Monday, when you got back to back, depending on what times they are, where people are located, I think the early game usually doesn't get the draw that the later game does. Right. So that way, having two sort of true evening games on a Thursday, Monday actually probably suits the live volume better.
Right, standalone going up. The Commanders and the Packers, you guys are at 3. So if you're in a state that's got Prime or has got BetCris Arizona, I love your number because I love the Packers. I think 3.5 is an interesting number, but what are you guys seeing from an action standpoint? Because you got a price that's lower than most people in the country at the moment.
So on that one, we're at about 72% of the money is on the Packers. However, of the master money, it's generally all Commanders, but that's at like +4.5, +4.
Okay.
And then there's a little bit at the -3 on the other side, but it seems like whenever it touched 4 and there was a bit at 4.5, it got snapped up pretty quickly.
Yeah, I love the 3. I mean, I think that's obviously we know this is a key number, but I was like, when I went and looked at your number, I went, oh wow, I like that 3 a lot. So you guys opened at 4.5. Is that where the opening number was?
Yeah, it looks like it opened at 4.5, and then the 4 was taken as well. It went to 3.5, and then sort of bounced between the +3.5 flat and the -3 minus money.
To Sunday.
But I mean, coming into the season, I actually thought the Packers was probably one of the, yeah. You're good. Go ahead.
No, I know. Continue on because I mean the Micah Parsons thing, I think changes the dynamic for the Packers defense. We know their offense is going to be good, but that I think to have an extra week with Micah Parsons and then the travel for the Commanders, I don't really understand the Commanders' love, to be quite honest. I mean, I think it's going to be hard to play on a short week. Sure, you beat the Giants, but I don't think the Commanders showed me a whole lot. I'm surprised that you guys have some pretty heavy, sharp action on the Commanders.
Yeah, I think that, again, the Commanders were kind of starting to get bet heavy at the end of last season. I guess they've shown nothing sort of away from that. And, I don't think they've really sort of worked out what Green Bay is yet this year.
Right. Fair. A game on Sunday, I'm curious. Jaguars are on the road against the Bengals. You guys are at 3 on this one. Again, it's week number 1. It's week number 2 for the Bengals. Anybody taking a road shot with the Jaguars?
Yeah. So on this one, we're 50-50 overall money. Master money, we're 100%. And it looks like, again, the opening number was 4, and the 4 and the +3.5 were taken pretty quickly.
I think that's a game. I don't know if you can use it in Survivor. I don't know if I'm going to bet it or not, but the Jaguars looked good. They looked competent offensively with Liam Cohen, and that Bengals team, like you mentioned, they should have lost to the Browns, and somehow they were able to win that game. Week 1 to week 2, clearly teams make big adjustments. But question on Saturday, Georgia, Tennessee is a monster game in the SEC. Tennessee's a home dog to Georgia here. I mean, if you're an SEC fan, this is one of those games that you love to watch and you love to bet. Early, what are you guys seeing from an action standpoint? You got -4 for Georgia on the road.
Yeah, so this is one that I actually saw and actually highlighted. It opened 7.5. It got bet hard and fast all the way down to actually 3. And then as soon as it hit 3, the Georgia money started coming in to 3.5. So, this is the advantage of when you have real bettors that you're allowed to take, whatever the limits are when they open. We found out pretty quickly the 7 was the wrong number and it got hammered down to 3. And then as soon as that 3 popped up, then you started getting the, other sharp action the other way. So I think that 3.5, 4 is where it's going to end up. And, it's on the rec money. It's starting to get good two-way money, and it's a pretty well-balanced game. But yeah, on the Masters, they really hit that one early, and then we found where the buyback was on the other side.
The backyard brawl, Pittsburgh and West Virginia. Obviously, there'll be some crossover there into Ohio for you guys with that game, but 6.5, that number seems pretty heavy for a rivalry game, for a road favorite for Pittsburgh. West Virginia lost to Ohio on the road last week, and so people are down on Rich Rod in West Virginia. But are you seeing any action on that game early?
And this is probably the second biggest bet game after that Georgia-Tennessee one. And if I look, it's sort of fairly well balanced, and it's been anywhere between sort of -5, -5.5, up to getting some action at -7 even. And then on the flip side, +7.5, +7, +6.5. And then sort of from the sharp action, again, this one sort of opened up a little bit lower and then got up to the 7 and then got whacked a little bit back to the 6.5. So it's kind of found its spot right now. But there is solid action on Pittsburgh supporting them on the sharp side.
Do you think that will close at 7? Will that keep going up?
I don't think so. From what I'm seeing, although there's a little bit of 7 around, that there is some smart players at the +6.5. So I imagine that, once they find these players, once they find the spot where they know that they can sort of push back and the rec money is going to drive over the top, they'll wait until as late as possible to be able to get as high as numbers as possible. So I imagine once it's sort of the 7 will start disappearing late Friday, early Saturday, with what I'm seeing right now.
Adam, there was a story that came out this morning about college football on ESPN and how ESPN is losing the NBA, and they're going to fill the void with college football games on Friday. We've seen the Big Ten do it with Friday night football games, which has generally been a high school football in America night, and college is now going to come in and be there. From a book perspective, I'm assuming you're going to welcome that, right? Football over basketball?
100%. Yeah, I mean, the more the games are spread out. I mean, those last few weeks when they really spread those college games, and even Monday night before the NFL game, I think it was North Carolina. I think played last Monday night.
Yep.
Before that, I mean, the volume on that game was enormous. So yeah, the more they spread out these college games, the more they sort of put them across the week, the better it is for us to get that volume. And again, the goal is the more volume you take, the more opportunity you have. So I'm definitely welcoming that. And then that Saturday schedule, if they can slim that down a little bit and spread it out a bit more, it always helps as well.
You're in Kentucky right now, Adam. I don't know if you have it in front of you or if you remember or not, but did that field goal late, which pushed the game to the over with Kentucky and Ole Miss, and then the apology that came afterwards from head coach Lane Kiffin to the gamblers as to 1, the over, and 2, the +9.5 was covered and Ole Miss did not cover. Did that field goal matter to you guys at all from a handle perspective?
A little bit on the over. Again, generally anything over is not good. I mean, NFL last week, 1-11, 11 and 1 under was
perfect.
Perfect. It probably helped the green numbers overall once we sort of identified that. It didn't make that big of an effect, so it wasn't too much. But that happens. Like, just play the game, get it out. No need to apologize. It is what it is.
It's the world we live in now, where head coaches are going in the media and apologizing to gamblers for giving up last-second field goals. It's like, wait a minute, which is kind of
not necessarily the fact that they know what the number is, and that is kind of a little scary as well. So, I mean, the less they know about what the number should be or is or anything like that, and they just play the games within their ecosystem, I think that's the best way to go.
So you're for the separation of church and state, if you will, in terms of like, we'll handle the number, you guys go coach football.
That's exactly how it should work. Yeah, it gets a little scary when players or coaches or whatnot know what their over-under rebounds is or things like that. Then it just opens it up that when they come out and say something like that, well, 1 week they mightn't know what that total is, and they might do something, take a knee or do something that's unconventional, and they're going to get hammered from that. And then, people are going to say, well, you knew the number then, so you must have known it now. Why'd you do that? Did you bet the under? Did you bet, so it really opens them up. And, I think those guys kind of need to be protected from themselves as much as possible.
Amen to that. Before I let you go, BetCris Arizona on the screen for the first time. We've got folks in Arizona who watch the show. What are you guys doing in Arizona? Obviously, it's a new brand for the state. Congratulations about opening there. And what folks in Arizona, what will they see if they come down to use BetCris?
I mean, it's the same old product. It's just we take a bet. I mean, the goal is to just keep taking bets. I know we have a sign-up bonus right now, up to 250, 100% match, 250 for 250. We're starting to see the clientele build up, catching some of that Nevada action coming across, driving down to exit 2, where they can get into Arizona as well. It's just there. We're just there to take bets. And the more states we get, the more locations we can get. It's just, that's the name of the game. And we're just trying to, the more bets we take, the more opportunity we get and players get. And, and we've got sport trade there. So I think arbitrages is a big opportunity. And again, you've got that, border flux with Circa as well. And then obviously again, with Prime in Kentucky, with Circa here, there's good opportunities for real sports books taking real bets for the players to take advantage.
Absolutely love it. Adam, happy birthday. Early happy birthday. Thank you for doing it. Enjoy Kentucky. Enjoy wherever you guys go over the next couple of days. Nashville's a hell of a town, and it's a great product. We were over there. We did the show live from the Mint. It's a really cool venue. I haven't seen the new Circa Sportsbook. We were there before the renovations were complete there, but looks gorgeous in what I've seen online. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of the show, and we'll talk to you next week. All right?
All right. Cheers. Thanks, Matt.
One and only Adam Bjorn joining us here on the Bostonian versus the Book. Great to get him on the program here on a Wednesday. Normally he'll be joining us Thursday, but his birthday is tomorrow. So, we gave him an opportunity to go and celebrate his birthday there. And if you are in Nevada and if you are in Arizona, check out BetCris. I mean, again, this is one of those situations where as we continue with the show and try to keep the show on the air, these are the people that are keeping the show on the air. Adam's keeping the show on the air. So if you have a chance to use a book, Prime in your state, whether it be Ohio, Jersey, or if you're in Arizona, if you're in Nevada, drive down. It's a quick little jaunt over the Hoover Dam, and you can get right into Arizona. You can make an account very quickly, very easily, and use that. So good stuff with that. And happy birthday to Adam. I would agree with that. Thank you for him coming on the program. Good stuff. Back-to-back interviews. I mean, my gosh, I knew today was going to be good. I knew today was going to be a lot of fun for us to jump in with that. Let's get to a story before we say goodbye to Sports Grid that is the news of the industry, but I think is a really interesting story. Now, if you guys remember when the study that came out that claimed a correlation between sports gamblers and bankruptcies, that states that had legalized sports gambling were seeing a higher number and a higher percentage of bankruptcies, I asked the question of, how do you know it's tied? How do you know there is a causation, that there is not just an anecdotal situation going on here where, well, people are going bankrupt more often in America for a variety of reasons, and that gambling just happens to be legalized in those states? How do you know that there is a cause and an effect, that the legalization of sports gambling is leading to more young men to file for bankruptcy, not just guys getting in trouble with credit cards? And there was no answer. There was no evidence. It was just, well, we think this is what's going on. And I called it out, and I thought it was irresponsible, and I thought it was blatantly just negligent to roll this out and make it seem like there was some preponderance of evidence to prove this assertion that by legalizing sports gambling in these states, we were leading young men into a, down a path to peril, down a path to bankruptcy, right? Wow. Look what happens when they actually did the research and they went and looked at it and saw it. Data shows that bankruptcies and credit scores are not impacted. They are not impacted by sports betting being legalized. And yet we allowed that narrative to be pushed. We allowed that narrative to be out there and to be talked about on CNBC. I mean, there are numerous accounts that I follow on social media, on Instagram, that consistently have referenced that young men are having their lives destroyed, that the public health crisis. Do you guys remember the interview we did with the author who went on the Daily Show and then came on this show? And when I asked him, it's a public health crisis, and he kind of like went, yeah, it's a public health crisis. Sports gambling is a public health crisis to young men in America. We just allow these people to say these things, and no one checks it. No one calls them out and says, how do you know what this to be factual? Like, how do you know this is real? And you're not just blowing smoke and saying stuff because you think it's true. Is it true? Do you think it's true? Do you hope it's true? Do you want it to be true? Are you hoping that this evidence is there because you want sports gambling to go back into the shadows? You're tired of the ads and you're tired of this stuff happening. So somebody goes and does the real research, and lo and behold, holy crap, there is no big difference between bankruptcy filings and overall credit scores in states that were early adopters of legal online sports betting. This from the Public Policy Institute, a paper entitled Balancing Innovation and Risk, the Case of Legalized Sports Betting, released today, examines real numbers behind other studies that raised, quote, widespread worries about the negative financial, social, and emotional impacts of online sports betting. The author of the paper said, quote, we looked at the data concerning consumer credit scores and bankruptcies. It's kind of a big picture from 50,000 feet. If you can see the effects of legalized sports betting, it doesn't give you a final answer, but it does say, well, we're not seeing any big changes. We're not seeing any big changes. That is a far cry from what was reported across the board, that young men are being led to their demise, that this is a public health crisis, that all of a sudden sports gambling is to blame for all the ills, all the negative things are happening in society. It's sports gambling's fault. And we just sat back and we let it to happen. We just allowed it to happen. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible when you see this, and this pops today, and I'm just like, holy crap. I know sports gambling is an easy target, and I know there are people who absolutely despise what we do, and they despise us for that we do it, that we talk about the number, that we care about the game from a betting perspective, not necessarily who wins and loses, but did you cover the spread? Like, they hate that. They find that to be dirty. They find that to be disgusting. It's not true sports, right? Who wins and who loses, who loses. That's what really means the most, right? Championships and wins and losses, right? And as sports fans, and Dave and I have talked about this for a long time, if you lose the joy from your team winning and you no longer have fun watching sports because you have to have money on it in order to enjoy it, you should stop betting. Like, you should have a love of gambling, but you should also have a love of sports first. And that's what should bring you to gamble, because it's way more fun to bet on sports when you love sports, right? It's way more fun to be proven correct when you have an opinion and you have a take and you're like, I think this is going to happen. I like this. Here's what I think is going to happen. Not only is my team going to win, my team's going to win by more than this number of points, right? That's a great, fun entertainment activity that young men in general, have been doing for a very long time. Gambling is not new, and people need to get it through their heads that gambling has been happening for a very long time. I have been betting on sports for 30 years. We have not had legalization for 30 years. Okay? It hasn't happened. We have been betting offshore. We've been betting on, Jimmy the Nose. Like, we've been doing all these things that we've been doing. But it's great to see that we actually have a legitimate entity come out and say, yeah, that nonsense that was being spewed across everyone's social media for like 3 months? Complete and total garbage. Not true. No evidence. Fabricated baloney. In bonus time, I'll use different language. If you're watching on the replay, thank you for being here on Sports Grid. If you are live, don't move. More coming at you on a Wednesday. BVB being presented by BetCris Arizona. So now we can talk a bit more freely on this. I don't understand. CBW, clicks more important than accuracy. It wasn't even that it was, and it was inaccurate. Let's be clear. It was an inaccurate thing that was being stated by this study. They wanted it to be true. They wanted it to be accurate without having any evidence of it being accurate. That's what pisses me off the most about all of this, because it's an easy out. It's an easy target. And so they want to blame sports gambling for everything. They want to blame it for young men's depression. They want to do it and blame it for young men's bankruptcies, credit scores. What else? Like, let's go down. Obesity, is that next? Lack of sex. I mean, I'm waiting, and I'm being honest. Yesterday, a very large study came out that talked about young men and drinking of beer. And we are at a historic low with young men who are not drinking alcohol. They're not drinking, okay? Alcohol consumption is way down. Cannabis consumption is way up. It's way up. Kids under the age of 30 are getting high like it's 1975. Kids don't want to drink. Okay. And people are saying, well, society, these kids are sitting at home on their phones, playing video games, streaming on Twitch. They're not going out. They're not looking to meet young women. They're not going to bars. They're not partying. They're staying at home and doing bong rips and playing Mario Kart, whatever the new game is these days. I'm out of the whole deal. Okay. Okay, bro, I'm not saying you're wrong, but it's true. There is no hangover. There is no aggression. Cannabis, okay, doesn't affect people the same way that alcohol does. There is no hangover. There is no violence that comes from it. You ever met a stoner who wants to break something? Doesn't happen. There's never been a documented case of an overdose with THC, okay? You might go a little loopy, but you're not ODing. I have been on the professional side, the legalization side of cannabis consumption for a very long time. Now my health went down a direction, and I have essentially stopped drinking alcohol, and I've stopped consuming cannabis because my health went to shit. And because of it, I said, okay, I got to stop doing these things because it's not great to be putting your body into those states. And obviously I'm sitting here with a sling on. Okay. So so I'm still dealing with health issues, but if I was having pain and if I was in need, I took the Oxy 2 times. Okay. I took 2 pills. That's it. If I needed it right now, I would much rather take an edible than an Oxy. I would much rather take an edible than drink, especially if I'm at home. And so I've been waiting for that to be blamed on sports gambling. I've been waiting for the story to come out and say young men are no longer going to bars and young men are no longer spending their disposable income on beer. They're now spending it on parlays. I'm waiting for that to happen. I'm assuming it's going to happen at some point. It's the only thing that we've not seen blamed yet. Gambling has not been blamed for the lack of alcohol consumption yet. It will, yes. And K-Bro, I drink too, and I've got bottles and bottles and bottles of whiskey. But it is true, and I've said this on this show, that alcohol is poison. Doesn't mean you don't drink it, but alcohol is the one thing that we actually put into our bodies that we receive zero health benefits from. You consume alcohol, there is no benefit. Now, there might be lack of stress relief, maybe there's there, but the inhibition maybe goes away, but that's not really a health benefit, okay? There is a health benefit for cannabis. There's a health benefit for consuming THC. There is not for alcohol. And I love alcohol, okay? I love whiskey. I can't drink beer because I have a gluten intolerance, so beer and me have broken up, but that just means I drink more whiskey, which isn't really a good thing, but I drink more whiskey. I mean, scotch and everything else. Like, sorry, I'm kicking the camera. That's just where I go. That's what I do. I'm an adult. I want to do adult things. I want to be able to do adult things. I want to be able to gamble. I want to be able to drink. I want to be able to consume cannabis. I've said it before. It used to be where Nevada, when I first moved to Nevada 10 years ago, everything that I wanted to do was legal in Nevada. Everything I wanted to do was legal. Now, everything I want to do is legal everywhere, essentially. I mean, it's not legal in New Hampshire. Cannabis is not legal here, but it's legal in Massachusetts. Sports betting is legal in Massachusetts. Alcohol is legal in Massachusetts. The three things that I want to do are all legal in Massachusetts. So, it's not just in Nevada. There are multiple states, Michigan, Illinois, like just go through the list, right, of the number of states. And I'm not saying that cannabis legalization has been a great thing, okay? It's, the public consumption of cannabis is horrible. And it's disappointing. It's somebody who has been preaching legalization since I was 15 years old, to see the people consuming it on city streets and consuming it and blowing smoke around kids infuriates me. People smoking it in parking garages and in their cars infuriates me. I think it's disgusting behavior, and I think it's horrific behavior. And just like I would say about some guy drinking on the street corner with a bottle, taking a bottle of Jack and drinking on a street corner, it's the same thing. I would call that deplorable and disgusting. And I think the public consumption of cannabis is frustrating. But I don't throw the baby out with the bathwater on this stuff. And I say, okay, those are some bad things that happen. But overall, I still want it to be legalized. So we're just so quick to blame sports betting for everything. And hopefully this is like, that's it. Like, we're done. Yeah, look. Smokers at a game is disgusting, whether it be THC, nicotine, whether it be vaping, it's disgusting on all everything. It's absolutely disgusting. Cannot happen. Should not happen. It's horrible, but it does. It happens. It happens. I mean, the last football game I went to was for UNLV, and there was a guy 3 rows up who was vaping like crazy, and security threw him out. They came down and tossed him. I was happy about that. I was like, good. You should be thrown out for that. It's a public space. You should not be doing that. But people still do it. With kids around even. People still do it. And that's no. So I'm not if you want to do that at home, right? You want to smoke, great. You want to smoke THC cartridges, you want to smoke vape, you want to do it. That's all you. Do that whatever you want. And that's the only thing about alcohol that is a benefit. I don't have to consume what you're doing when you drink. When you smoke cigarettes, when you smoke vapes, when you smoke THC, when you smoke in general, smoke anything, you're leaving behind the remnants of what you're doing. And now I have to consume that. And that's nasty. My daughter has to consume that. That's nasty. That should not happen. So I am all for like knocking all that out. But that has nothing to do with sports gambling and blaming bettors for everything. And all the vices of society are being pinned on sports betting. Young men right now are the easy target for a lot of things. And it is remarkable that there's so many people who are looking for a boogeyman when it comes to why their son may be not productive or why their son is not living up to his potential, right? And you hear it like, he was so good until he got a hold of that FanDuel crap. He was looking for something anyway. he would have found it. If it wasn't for FanDuel, he would have found it, or DraftKings or somebody else. He would have found it. And maybe he'd already found it offshore, but he's comfortable telling you because it's legal. Oh, the advertisements. What do you mean? The advertisements for everything are everywhere. We got advertisements for, for escorts on the Strip in Vegas. Okay? Like, just because it's advertised doesn't mean that you have to do it. Doesn't mean you're required to be a part of it. I mean, vices are vices, right? If you're looking for it, you can find it. I always say that about Vegas. You can find whatever you want in Vegas if you're looking for it. You go looking for something bad in Vegas, you're going to find it. But if you don't, it's adult Disneyland. Like, it's not going to find you unless you go looking for it. It's like no one's going to walk up to you and give you a bag of drugs. Like, here, kid, here's a bag of drugs. Okay, well, if you go and start looking, asking for it and talking about it, then yeah, people might find it. People might come across it and find you with it. So this idea that sports gambling is to blame for all this stuff, it's just ridiculous. It really is. And so I'm glad that this story came out. I'm glad that this popped, because we need to go ahead and push that and end that and have that not be there, because it really is something else. It's crazy on that. All right. Big thank you to Kevin Iole, legendary writer. If you missed any part of that interview, go back and watch it. It was awesome to talk about Canelo versus Crawford. That fight happening Saturday night, Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. Cannot wait. Crawford's plus money. I don't know how much longer that will be the case, to be quite honest. I do think Crawford's going to go off as a smaller price than what he is right now. So if you're at Prime and BetCris Arizona, they're at plus 163 for Terrence Crawford. 10.5 at minus 345 to give you an idea. 10.5 minus 345. Like, this fight's going to the cards. So it's by decision. And Kevin Iole believes that Crawford can win in Vegas on the cards. I'm not so sure of that, to be quite honest. I think Bud Crawford needs to stop Canelo. Can he? No one's ever dropped him besides his fight against Floyd. He dropped him. He didn't stop him, but he's dropped him. Can Bud drop Canelo? I don't know. I don't know, but he may need to at least once. Maybe not stop him, but they'll need to drop him, I think, to win. Can he? Yes. The footwork, Canelo does not cut the ring off. And that's what Bud excels at. So I'm all in on Crawford. I love it on Saturday night. I'm happy to hear Kevin Iole agrees, but it's by decision. I mean, you can just basically you can go and bet the thing if you want on a prop, because I don't think you have to bet the thing with laying the money line. I think you just bet it by, it's going to be the same price, basically. It's going to be $3 to bet Bud by decision, but it's going to be expensive because that's the only realistic path here is Bud by decision. The crazy plus is going to be Bud by knockout. You want to throw a Hail Mary? Bud covered by knockout is your Hail Mary coming up on that. 3 is the number that you can find, and you can get that at BetCris Arizona. You can get it at Prime in Ohio, in New Jersey. Packers -3 at -125. I love that. I don't believe I have access. Let's see what the DraftKings price here in New Hampshire, where I am at. That price is still we are still 3.5, -105. 3.5. So shopping that half a point is the most expensive half a point in a sports book, like we know. It's 20 cents, it's 30 cents, 2.5 to 3, and 3 to 3.5. I think this number probably closes at 3, but you can get it right now at BetCris Arizona, and you can get it in New Jersey with Prime and Ohio with Prime Sportsbook. So they're already there. They're at 3. The professional money has come in pretty heavily on the Commanders. I'm on the other side. I disagree. I don't like Washington here. I don't like their defense. I like Green Bay. I like Micah Parsons. I like Jordan Love. I like that they're at home. I can't do it. I can't get behind the Commanders. Scott, thanks for being here. Appreciate you guys being here. Missed any part of the show, go back and watch it on YouTube at Boston versus the Book. Hit the like button. Leave a review. Tell us where you're watching it from. Lots to come tomorrow on the program. I'm going to try to get Debro on to break down Thursday Night Football from a prop betting perspective. So stay tuned for that conversation coming at you guys tomorrow. My thanks to Kevin Iole. My thanks to Adam Bjorn. My thanks to BetChris Arizona and to you guys in the BVB Brigade. If you want to talk about my favorite thing about today, well, that's pretty simple for me. Favorite thing about today is you guys. Straight up, you guys and the brigade and being on the Discord channel. It's been really fun. We are very slowly building the Discord channel. And if you've not jumped on it, I really would say do it because it's free. It's fun. You take this live chat and it goes to the other 23 hours during the day to be on the Discord channel, thebvbshow.com. I actually talked to a friend of mine in Iowa today. And I really want to get you guys t-shirts. I really want to try to build our store, and I really want to try to get you guys t-shirts. Hats are hard because Dave and I have had, like, if you guys could listen into the number of conversations Dave and I have had about hats and how particular Dave is about the hats and how he was so adamant about a very specific type of hat. And we might be able to do it, but t-shirts, he was far more open to the idea. He was always like, look, if you can find a t-shirt that works, do it. Like, go ahead and do it. So I really want to do a BVB t-shirt. I want to do an always forward, never straight t-shirt. I want to do a couple different things. So I'm efforting to try to get that thing up and going. Hopefully by Halloween is my goal. So, and hopefully way before that, but that's my drop dead, like, have to be done by Halloween to have our store be up with at least the first iteration of BVB t-shirts for you guys to buy. It's just been a long time coming. So we need that to do. And yes, Dave is a complete hat aficionado, 100%. So yeah, BVB Brigade has its own Discord channel. And so just go. It's simple. Just go to thebvbshow.com and there's a direct link right to it. So get in there, be a part of it. It's fun to watch games in there as well. You want a meat curtain shirt, JPC. How do I create a meat curtain shirt? Oh boy. A meat rhombus and parallelograms. Yeah, we'll definitely take. You guys have had so many cool ideas, and a buddy of mine is now helping to run a company in the Midwest for t-shirts and t-shirt creation. So hopefully we're going to be able to get that rolling relatively quickly and get that up with our own store here off of our website, thebvbshow.com. So hopefully that will happen. Good show today, guys. Thank you for being here. We're back tomorrow for a Thursday's Bostonian versus the Book.